Welcome to Cevo Secret Sauce, where we interview the celebrities of Cevo and figure out what makes them tick. Today I have Tom, who I work closely with, and mate, I'm absolutely ecstatic to have you.
Glad to be here and looking forward to eating some wings, mate.
First one's an easy one. The chili maple. Let's go. So, in the migration practice, I think that migrations are different to cloud native and the DevOps practices in that they almost sit in between and cover both in a lot of different ways. But what therefore is kind of the perfect, what would the perfect consultant look like? If you could, if you were ChatGPT and I asked you what would you actually kind of give as a recipe for the perfect consultant?
Generally a flexibility around the consultant, around their ability to work across a number of different disciplines. Cloud automation is obviously bedrock to it, but also having a background across, working with systems and different environments. So not sort of starting at the cloud native, but certainly having an understanding of those things in the data center and being able to work through those, and a strong problem solving mindsets, like key, and communications, obviously. None of this exists in a vacuum. You're always dealing with, people through the business and vendors and so forth. So I think being able to tie all those strands together, work things out within the constraints of, time, budget, capacity, is really key to it.
Do you think there's portability somewhat between maybe DevOps and migration that we leverage?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the value add is not just like they say, the lift and shift is within the course of your migration program is what can we uplift that's the quick wins, and there should always be a base level of automation from the DevOps side that should go into everything. So we don't want to white glove legacy systems into the cloud. Certainly the business logic may stay the same, but from an infrastructure perspective, I think that's a non-negotiable. That has to be automated. Because otherwise you're going to be building, bespoke controls, whether it's operational, security or whatever, for every workload you bring across. So having that ability to do not repeat yourself and apply that to the things you're migrating is, absolutely part of it.
How did you find that as far as heat?
Starting strong. Let's see where we go from here.
The next one is the Banji Ranch. Oof. Another subtle one. So the first one was 1600 Scoville heat units. Mm-hmm. This is 6200. What skills do you think transfer from parenting to people leadership, and also kind of vice versa?
I think the trap you can fall in on both sides is telling, although that's often the shortcut you take when, for whatever reason you just need to tell, whether someone's left a cup or bowl on the edge of your table.
Who would do such a thing, Tom?
But I think what we need to have is a discipline around working with people, as with children, because they're people too, obviously, is we don't want to be telling people to the end of their days what to do. I certainly don't want to be telling my kids what to do when I'm 80 years old in a retirement home. They've got to start to take responsibility and be their own leaders in life and lead themselves and lead others. Similarly with consultants, right? So as part of that, you don't know what you don't know, so how do you find out? As you could always receive that information or guidance, or you can start to put two and two together. And I think the way we work with people to uplift them around their own leadership and self-direction is more around asking the right questions. And that's a bit of a challenge, right? Because it's harder sometimes to pull those questions together than to just simply go, we need X, Y, Z here. Is how do you formulate questions? And it's a bit of a skill yourself. And it's something I've continually tried to work on, and I'm far from perfect at it. But that's sort of I think that's the best way of everyone sort of getting uplifted, if I can put it a better way, is asking good questions is a much more valuable skill than being able to give good directions, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone who works at Cevo is they're all brilliant people. Everyone's super smart, has incredible skill ranges and experience, and sometimes it's getting everyone on the same page around direction, whether it's on a project or just what we do in general, and leading a client is a really invaluable skill. And I hope everyone coming through Cevo is building those leadership skills as they come through as well. So how can we support them? And I think that's part of the step to it.
How did you go with that one?
Easy.
Easy. Oh, the confidence comes out. The next one has a picture of a satanic dog on it. Its bark is far worse than its bite. So you just mentioned about everyone wanting really should be focused on growing their leadership skills. And I just want to kind of push in a little bit more and try and isolate what some of those skills specifically are that you think are probably the most important.
Probably some of the two obvious ones we could talk about is, I guess, mirroring what we see. So if I guess I've had the benefit of coming through consulting many years ago and having a lot of mentoring and a lot of sort of formal training, if you will, around consultancy. And some of it's hit and miss, right? It's not a perfect thing, but it certainly puts you through the paces. And I think that's good, but it's kind of an isolation. What always worked really well was, sort of getting the opportunities to challenge and extend yourself. And by that I mean, like, oh gosh, I'm probably new to consulting. I've never run a workshop. I've never presented to an executive or anything like this or whatever. And it's like, how do you sort of work with the team around those consultants, and so they can take on the challenge of doing that. Stretch themselves, really extend themselves. And it's not just getting up in front of the room and speaking, it's 2 weeks out. What is all the prep work? You have to do the research, thinking around FAQs, putting together your presentation, your slides, pacing, structure.
What questions are they going to ask? What do you do when you don't know?
You don't just show up and talk, right? I mean, you probably can if you've done the same thing 40 times, but the first time there's a lot of prep work. So there's a bit of practical stuff that can go into doing that. And I think the other part of leadership is also building those mental templates of if I see X, I know the implication could potentially be Y. And that comes with experience. But again, it's sort of getting out and taking on new challenges.
How'd you go with that as far as heat?
Starting to linger a bit.
Los Calientes. 36,000 Scoville units. So double again.
Good stuff.
So probably extending on this a little bit further and shifting slightly away from leadership specifically, but as we grow and we continue to hire more and more people, and not necessarily that our quality will go down, but we will hire more junior consultants or people that are very technically gifted but haven't necessarily consulted before. What 3 skills would you really want to get a junior consultant to pick up so that they can really progress their career into a more senior consultant role?
It's a great question. I think we talked around the soft skills. So certainly being able to communicate your ideas effectively is a huge one. And that's not just the verbal communication either. I think one of the other bits we sometimes gloss over is the written or visual communication. Like the picture tells 1,000 words. And I know we're not, Big Four consultancy, but being able to put together an effective pack, in the classic McKinsey pyramid of, structuring your data, your information, and, your perspective or your view up, working towards being able to, uplift your written communication or your, non-verbal communication is a huge one, and that's a bit of a learned skill. And you get the practice and you can build your portfolio of ideas. That's a huge one. Because again, perception's reality, right? Like you could be the most brilliant engineer in the world. If you can't, effectively communicate what you're doing,
Are you really brilliant?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and that sort of goes on to my next one, which is again a non-technical skill. Is I think Steve Jobs said it: "Real genius is ship." So, we can wait around and perfect everything, but you've actually got to deliver value.
How'd you go with that one for heat?
Not so bad. Not so bad.
Oh, look at him go. Oh. You like Indian, right?
Ghost peppers. I don't think I've ever had one at ghost pepper before. So
it does say it's got ghost pepper in there, but it tastes much more like just like a nice curry. It's more of a curry heat than a chili heat, I've found.
Curry's good. Let's do it.
Juggling clients and projects and obviously your personal life is a challenge for all consultants, and I think it's part of the job that you don't have to deal with or get the opportunity to deal with internally. Can you remember a time where it's hit particularly hard for you, and how you have kind of used that to equip the people that you're lifting up to deal with their own challenges, or how it's kind of changed your perspective on it?
I think the one formula I've sort of learned to apply over the years is effectively or less effectively, depending on the situation, is getting the data of where you're at is the first step. So understanding, even as we're eating the wings, right? We know what wings, what progression, and when we're going to finish and where we're going to finish. Sometimes, and particularly on bigger, more complex gigs, we can get lost in the sea of, what am I doing? What do I need to be doing? And there's that thing of where concentration's such a scarce commodity, and I think none of us are perfect at this, as being able to concentrate on one task at one time, and being in an environment like this, we know it's nice and quiet, we're focused on one thing. So what I found really well working with a team is I need to understand, if I'm sort of doing the delivery management role, is I need to understand the data. Where are all the moving parts at? Who's with what? How do I connect the dots between all the different pieces? And then with the team is, how do we give them the space to focus and concentrate on the tasks at hand, rather than sort of hopping around and doing various things. I think our job can get kind of stressful at sometimes, particularly the classic overcommit, and that's always a thing you got to be wary of, and sometimes it's unavoidable, but knowing beforehand if you're going to start to turn red is the best time to know it, rather than post. And
absolutely.
The last thing you need to be on is the watermelon project, because watermelons turn into death marches, which is no fun for anyone. Yeah,
absolutely not. How'd that go for you?
Good.
So the next one, again, is not too bad. So this is the Mushroom Mayhem. This goes to 68,000 Scoville heat units. So hotter again.
All right.
All right. Our hypothetical junior consultant from before that has taken the time and perfected their craft, spent another 3 years at Cevo, 2 years at Cevo, grown into a successful senior consultant. What do they need to do to further their career to the next step for lead consultant, senior consultant, pod lead? Where should they be focusing their energies?
Presentation and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication, obviously. Yeah. I remember early on, first RFP pitch for a customer many years ago, I had that quirk, which just about everyone does, of the ums and ahs. And we would sit in the room and run through the pitch and have someone marking off every time you did an and ah. You start to become very conscious of that. And you can let a little bit of silence into your sentences. So there's little bits like that as we work through them.
Have you noticed that it's really hard to not count that now when other people are talking?
Oh, you notice it. Yeah, absolutely. And further that, there's various other things. So I think, on the commercial side, there's various things around how to construct a commercial document, statement of work, really important. And again, it's not just writing down the intent of where you want to be. You have to understand how in broad sense you can get the customer to where they need to be. And then how can you structure the breakdown or the high level scope of work that will get them there, but at the same time not paint yourself in a corner around a certain way of delivering unless you have to. And that sort of comes with experience. That's not something you can probably teach or learn straight out of a book.
How'd you go with that?
Getting there, a little tingly.
It seemed like it came and it bit you a little bit and then kind of let you go. So, next one. What's this? This is one of the hippie ones. The Dreams of Calypso, angry goat pepper, made from real goat.
Let's do it.
Yep. So you mentioned something in there about consulting and getting distracted and avoiding distraction. I want to push you a bit more on that, in that there are forced distractions of context switching either within multiple phases or in a project, or multiple clients, or even switching from client to internal work. How can you, or what would you suggest would be the best way for someone struggling with that into how to either manage those distractions as individual things, or to find a way to quickly realign themselves back to where they need to be focusing?
There's the usual things around, avoiding distractions in your environment and various other things. And sometimes I've found when I'm getting distracted, sometimes it's changing where I'm sitting and maybe taking the laptop and sitting on a bench somewhere else and working and doing certain things like that. But if that's not an option, I think, and more generally, like the classic, oh boy, it's kicking in now. The classic, just making a list. Yeah, and look, recognising you're going down a rabbit hole is another one. Sometimes we do that. I do it myself all the time. It's really difficult. I don't know if there's any easy answer for that, but again, how do you track yourself day by day is pretty important.
How'd you go with that one? That seemed pretty hot.
Oh yeah.
So this is taco vibes only. This is a very nice tasting one. It is, however, 638,000 Scoville units. So 6 times the last one.
That's escalated. All right, little dip.
What's the one skill that no one else would have mentioned as a soft skill that you just really like people to have across Cevo?
If you've ever seen that film Apollo 13 from Tom Hanks, where
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, and they get all the engineers in the room with the box full of stuff.
Yep.
We've got to get them breathing again with the things in the box. The square peg and the round hole problem. I don't know how you articulate that, but being able to do this for our customers is I'd say I look for people who can do that. Think outside the box, be inventive. A little fire under me, that one.
Me too.
Yeah. Karen's been great.
Mate, thank you so much.
And always a pleasure to do business with you. So, thanks.